Hello. Sorry, I've been, holidays and whatnot. Really, kind of screwed a lot of stuff up. So I've been, back home where I'm from, Reno, Nevada. Um, and I was away from my computer, but I am back in Seattle now, ready to go. So, yeah, today we're working on this sword. The last time I streamed, which was I think 3 weeks ago. Um, which is a pretty long time if you ask me. Um, well, cool. Right now I'm just going through and just trying to get some of the kind of little stylized stuff out of the not or onto the handle real quick, since we think that would look really cool and nice. So I think the handle is the last thing we did when I was streaming. So now we're gonna do this bottom part. So which actually these three here. Okay. So that has a really nice lip on it. So there's a couple ways we can do this. I'm gonna just try a bunch and see how it feels. So right now we have this kind of straight area goes into the hilt, and then we have this little flat area that brings us out to these points. So for me, I'm gonna try beveling first, which is what beveling will do. Oh, also, the reason that this is solid and this isn't is because I'm using a thing called X-ray. It's not that one. And X-ray just makes it see-through. So, but I'm gonna use bevel. I'm gonna bring our bevel. Bring our bevel in a lot, and then pull it up. Okay, that's not terrible. I'll have to fix this back end, which is fine. I'm not worried about. Oh, hello. Don't even worry. Better late than never, right? I always say that. Let's see. Trying to figure out how much of a point we want on this. I think my favorite part about this kind of stuff is like, at this point, that's how high we're going. At this point, the concept is just our guidelines, and we kind of get to, you know, our artist intuition. Ooh, whoops. Well, unless you screwed up like that. Lamau. Misclick. Watch out for those. Okay, so we'll do something like this. Sure. Okay. So right now, what I'm gonna want to do, I'm trying to figure out how intense I want this bottom part to be. So we can actually do this. We're gonna do a couple things. So actually, why did that happen? Oh, because I never. Yeah. Is that better? Can you hear me now? Yes, no. I can drop the music down if the music's too loud. I don't really know. I always have to fuddle around with these. Better? Cool. Okay. Okay, well, we're gonna bevel that again. Okay, so we're gonna bevel this, leave it like this, and then this kind of, you know, goes into it. It doesn't come down like that. So in order to fix that, we're gonna do a couple things. What I'm gonna do is I'm just going to delete that. I'm gonna grab this edge, just pull it out. What I'm going to do is I'm gonna grab these vertices. I'm gonna align those duders on the y-axis, which that was normally I don't get that first try. Normally, if you hit X, it does like, you know, oh, that's not what I wanted. Z, same thing. So you just kind of screw around until you get the right one that you want. I'm gonna pull that out a little bit. We're gonna make that a little bit longer. So we can either this we'll have to figure out how we want to read this, whether or not we keep it just kind of pointiness the whole time through, or whether we think that it, you know, the points disappear up into this and then it flattens out or whatever. But we can screw with that later. Right now we're just trying to get the basic shapes down. So I kind of like where that's going for right now. Yeah, I think that's decent. So now what I think I want to do is I'm going to inset this again just a little bit, and then I want to pull this in just a bit so we get some nice little depth there. That'll be fun to sculpt on as well when we get to the sculpting part. Okay, so honestly this is looking, I don't know, it's not bad. And then if we wanted to fix anything, I'm going to use this thing called symmetry, which is a symmetry modifier that just mirrors things over an axis. So right now this is the axis that it's mirroring, and I can move that, you know, and change it. Like if I wanted a double point or whatever, I could just quickly do that. I love symmetry. It's awesome. It's super fun to play with. You can get a really awesome, cool shapes. The geometry is always really clean when you have certain settings on. But that's not what I'm here to do today. Right now, I am here to use this symmetry to swap that on over, and now I have an exact replica of the geometry that I just made on top under it, which I think is pretty freaking cool. So with that, I can convert to editable poly, which collapses that symmetry modifier down. And now I have a solid. I can actually take it off of that. Now I have a solid piece. Oh, that's disgusting. Wow, there we go. You know, now I have that little solid piece. So you know, if you're looking at it, do notice some things where like it's a lot straighter, not as rigid going in. So we can kind of play with that now. Well, maybe I goof. I probably well, okay. So normally I probably should have waited on the symmetry. The symmetry is going to be the last thing you do. So I might have jumped the gun a little bit now that we want to do a little bit of tweaks to it. But I can just go ahead, select all those polygons and delete them right back out. And now we're back to where we started with this top guy. So I am going to bring me back to X-ray though. And I think I just want vertices, and I just want to, well, we're going to try a couple of things because I honestly don't know how this is going to move, how they're going to move. Perfect, that's I think exactly what I wanted. Nope, that is not at all. Well, no, I don't want to switch like that. Okay, so you know what? We might just have to wing it. Okay, that's not terrible. I definitely want these back two ones as well, and I just guessed on where they were to pull this back out. Okay, that's looking more accurate. Okay, so that's not terrible. It's looking a little bit more accurate. We got some nice little shapes going on. A lot of this stuff, again, we'll change when I sculpt on it, and then when we come back in to build the low poly mesh over the top of the sculpt, we'll change that. But just gotta make sure I get the right angles down. That'll symmetry, and what I could do is literally just symmetry in half if I was worried, and then symmetry it below itself. But right now I think I'm happy with that, with the sizing and the curves and everything like that. Since this is the low poly, like I said, or the base mesh, I don't really have to. A lot of stuff we can change as long as we get the basic shape down, which I think we have. Oh lord. Hello. Okay. Weird. Yeah, so the watching work will pair me with things and people, which is fine, but I feel like it's like really clashing when you're trying to explain stuff, and I don't want to intrude on their stream and confuse the viewers. So it only happens once. I can choose to pair with someone else, or I can just leave it with where I'm at. Okay, so we're gonna go back to adding the symmetry modifier. We gotta do the z-axis. We can bring back how solid we want it. Okay, so that's good for now. Oops. In order to move the symmetry modifier, I have to move the actual mirror, which means I have to go into this modifier over here and change it. Which, you know, as you notice, it allows me to move stuff around. But I actually kind of want this to be thicker. I'll just leave it there for now. Bring that back. I want that to be in the center-ish of that. So now we can bring everything back. Look at this bad boy from the top. See how that looks. I actually think I need to bring this down. Ah, thank you, Duder. So I'm going to bring that down a little bit. Something like this. Honestly, I could probably shrink that down a bit. Get that nice and hugging, nice and tight around that, which looks awesome because I don't know if you noticed this, but they're lined up right on the halvesies of their points, which is awesome. It's always nice to have. This I don't have to worry about like all this geometry and stuff like that because it'll change when I need to add in all this little fun stuff. Oh, which you'll get to see how to do that. So I want to keep that piece out. So now what we should do is we can make this cloth going up to here, and then potentially we can make the cloth that goes across this, and then we can get to the blade. You know, it's 17 minutes in, so we'll just kind of work our way through stuff, complete one piece at a time. So I like to reuse geometry. It's just easier than remaking stuff. So I'm just gonna reuse that geometry by just in 3D modeling programs, you just shift click and drag, or you hold shift and then you click and drag, and it will duplicate whatever you have selected. It will also only in 3ds Max, which I'll show you here. So if I deleted this top part and then select this border, if I hold shift and drag out, it creates new polygons. So I can quickly like scale those out, shift back, and create really awesome shapes. I can scale them back in, again, draw out, and I can just, you can see how like, really quick, I could just make, you know, really awesome cool stuff. And that's on anything. That's on any open polygon. So, and then if I have an open end like that, I can just cap it, and we're good to go. I'm gonna cap this guy too. Bring that out a little bit. I'll bring that in. Which I think I want something like this for now. And I want the whole thing to come over here and then down around the hilt. So and then so a lot of this will just come through when we sculpt and stuff. But what I want to do right now is this. So cloth, right? You wrap it around and it's all layered and fun and all that kind of jazz. So we're just gonna take this little guy, you know, scale him up, shrink him down, all the way up the hilt. Alright, we have 1, 2, 3. That part's gonna be fun. Okay, we'll wait to that point. So now what I'm gonna do, which is probably one of my favorite parts, is, so if I leave all this stuff here, right, I can click on this, and then, I don't know, turbo smooth it, but we want 2 renditions, and I want keep smoothing groups. Okay. So I just added a whole bunch of polygons to it, which is going to make it a lot easier to do what I'm about to do next, which will be, so I have a turbo smooth. So what I can do actually, I'll leave one of these polygons off to the side that doesn't have a turbo smooth modifier on it, so it's just the base one that I used, and I'll go back to this. That way, in case something happens or I need to do something else, then we're good to go. I've got that. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna then do I think I want to do a 3x3. So what this does, I love these. These are, oh, I goofed, hold on. I'm gonna collapse this turbo smooth down. And then we're gonna do 3x3. I can stack modifiers if I really want to. Normally I avoid it just because it's easier. I goofed. So gonna look down and see what we're dealing with. So this has like, it swoops up, it's got a swoop in, and swoops up, and then kind of what we've got on this side, it kind of like loops in, I guess. So we want, first things first, I'm gonna take these guys and I want to move them in a little bit so you can see how it, if I take it off X-ray, this lattice allows me to just bend polygons around, so I can kind of warp them and make them do what I want, which is awesome. These 3 have a little bit of a curve down, and since this is a stylized piece and we're making some cloth, it's just really fun to kind of screw around with these lattices, and so I can drop that down, I can drop this down a little bit, and I can get some really awesomely fun shapes. And really kind of make this, I can grab these top ones, stretch that out a little bit, pull that up, so that when we get to other things, this is kind of inside a little bit, maybe I can even pull these guys out. So for right now, I think we're good with that. Yeah, and then what's really awesome is when you get into like ZBrush, I'll create the like cloth details and stuff, and then bringing it back into 3ds Max is I can kind of export out really low poly versions of the cloth, and they look pretty cool. So there's one, right? So then we go up to the next one, which I can convert to a poly, and now I have this cool little like warped one ring of cloth. So we go to the next one, and we do the same thing. We turbo smooth. I want 2 iterations, and I want smoothing groups on, and so then it just gives me the same exact thing. Oh gosh, that's not what I wanted. Pull that off to the side for now. So now we've got this guy. Again, we want to, and I can also add a 4x4, but it's just, I think the 3x3 helps with like some stylization and stuff. But now I just kind of, again, go to the control points and grab and kind of move what I want. Aw, thanks. Right now we're doing the cloth on the hilt. We're just kind of screwing around with some base geometry and getting some stuff all looking pretty. So this one is a little bit more like lengthy, and we want it under, so I'm actually going to shrink this down a bit, have it kind of wrap under that one a little bit. Maybe I pulled that too much. Oh, actually we can do this, something like that. It looks like if I want to, I can pull this guy down, and then take these guys, warp them in a little bit. So the fun part, and then the hilt becomes not geometry through this whole thing. It literally just becomes these rings through it, and then I just need a little section for this bottom part, which is really fun. Makes it really cool. So I might do the exact, I might bring this in a little bit more. Yeah. So and you get some really nice kind of like lips and stuff on it that like the light can catch, and makes for some really interesting things. So then, like, you know, we have this cool, awesome, right? And this one can pretty much almost be done if we want. And then take this one, for example, same thing. We're going to turbo smooth twice. We're going to do 2 iterations. Smoothing groups, cause that to, when I click on the smoothing groups, when that happens, every model has an idea of smoothing groups, and basically what the program does is it takes polygons, and it reads their normal, which is the direction they are facing in the engine, in this case in 3ds Max's engine, and it determines on how they're lit. So what I can do, I'll demonstrate on this hilt right here. So polygon, right? So I want this stuff to be hard shaded, right? Like I want the lighting to tell the difference between these two, and normally it shades based on angles. Well, I can take these. So top level, you can see that's a pretty significant drop, right? Like right here, you can tell they're shaded differently. Okay, so if I click on these guys and I go down, here are their smoothing groups. If I clear them off their smoothing group, I'm just going to put them in their own smoothing group. Okay, now if I take my wireframe off, can you see how the engine just took away my sharp edge? So this is very apparent, right? But they soften edges when you do that. And so what you can do with Turbo Smooth is you can set up smoothing groups and then turbo smooth it, and turbo smooth will take into account those sharp edges and will add geometry around them, which is why I'm getting some really awesome like sharp curves on these guys, is because the smoothing groups are different. So yeah, so that's really cool. Okay, so there it is. So now we're back to this. So I have a nice sharp clean edge, and it's not all soft and gross. But sometimes I want that, you know, sometimes I want a soft gross shadow for something. But it's just really interesting to kind of make the program work for you most of the time, which is pretty great. Okay, so we were on this guy. And this guy we're going to do this with, which is going to be really fun. So I want to actually just extend this bad boy out a bit. And then we'll probably, I want to make him a little bit longer. Okay, maybe that might be too, nah. There, okay. So, turbo smooth, great, awesome. We're going to convert that back down. Got all the stuff I need. Get that FFD on there. Go to the control points. Get to the top. So now what I can just do is just grab those guys. Oops. Oh my god. Not do that. And just move that down. And so it's just gonna warp based on how I move it. And then what I can do is I can take, again from the top, I can take these guys, I can pull them out a little bit, so I get this really interesting like curve. And I'll soften all of these in ZBrush. But so you get like this really cool little, you know, curvature effect. I'll probably also add that in later, that little tear. I don't need to add that in just quite yet. But now what I can do is take the other side and lift it up, and get our curve down there. Maybe strengthen that out, get a nice little curve in. Let's see, what do we have? That's just a pretty straight curve. That does dip in a little bit, and that flares out. Should we do flare out there? But and then nothing goes over it. That's why that looks so weird. So there's one. So top level, convert that back down, and then we do this guy, which we shrink in. Keep under, which this literally doesn't need to. Keep that under and do something like this. Okay. This will be interesting. This will be very interesting. Okay, cool. So you just want that to show up and be cloth. So all I actually have to do to this guy is just turbo smooth it, which technically don't even need to do that, but I'm going to because I can. Boop. So smoothing group. So that's just gonna hang out there and be more clothy. This little thing. It looks like my scaling might be a little off, as far as like that might be too tight, but we'll see. And then this guy again, we're gonna turbo smooth. I want 2 smoothing groups. We'll convert him or it, whatever. And then it looks like that all this one does is kind of warp up. So we're gonna grab those little control points right here, and we're gonna just warp him up a bit. Not too much, maybe. Probably grab all these, bring them up. I like having these guys kind of warp in. Again, right now I'm not trying. This is not the final mesh for the low poly. So we're right now we're just trying to get details and things into this mesh so that when I bring it into ZBrush, I can sculpt on all that stuff and make it look real pretty and all that. So with that, we might actually be what I'm gonna do. So see, I have this whole underlying geometry under here, which I don't need. So I actually remember that I did that in half. So I can delete that. Polygon, nope, actually we want, so the full level, now it's halvesies. And then what I can do is edge. I'm gonna hide everything else for a sec. I'm gonna grab this guy, pull it down. Oh, that was wrong. Probably strengthen that out, bring everything back. And now, cap it. Border cap. Boop. Now I've got my cute little end piece for the hilt, and there it is. Now it's that big instead of the whole length of the hilt, and now I have all these little pieces that I can individually sculpt on and create the hilt out of that. So those are our cloth pieces for right now. And now that I'm here, I actually remembered. So we've got our little cloth pieces over there too, right? So what I can do with that is this little default piece right here. I can take, which we wanted them to go pretty much right around the top of this guy. So I can just scale that up for right now, make it obnoxious, and then flatten that bad boy out. Obviously I want it thinner. Rotate it one direction. Oh no. Actually that's fine. And then I'm gonna hold shift and rotate it the other direction, and now I have two of them, which is pretty awesome. Which actually, I'm gonna wait on that one because I want to do that, but they're not going to be crossing over right where my thing is. So I want it to go out a little bit. So what actually what I'm gonna want to do, is inset these bad boys before I do anything else. Inset, I can delete those, and then I'm gonna want to, so I bordered those, and if I hit bridge, boom, it connects them on the inside. So guess what? Now I've got a ring, cool little ring, and as you know, that is going to be part of our. So now I can just bend this kind of cloth around where I need it. Right now, noise. Trying to get scaling right, which even right now this is decent, I think. Remember, it could probably. We probably wanted a little bit. No, actually, that might be thick enough. It's already going pretty thick. Sure. Okay. That's this is a thick with 2 C's, so just bear with me on that one. So I just copied that one, and we're gonna go ahead and pop that back over like that. So now we have these cool little cloth rings, right, all over the hilt. Now comes the fun part. This is actually really fun for me. So okay, cool, we get it. Like, you know, they're doing their thing, whatever. Now, remember that whole turbo smooth thing? So we turbo smooth it. Got 2 of those things. Oh my god, look at how freaking pretty that is. Which, if I want smoothing groups on, it gives me a sharp edge on it. If I don't, which I don't right now, I don't really need a sharp edge, because this stuff is not as, you know, I don't know. I'll keep the sharp edge just for consistency's sake, and that'll allow us to have the same effect going across all of these when I go into ZBrush. So we'll just keep that there. So then I go edit roll poly. We'll bring this whole on these guys. I like to have a little bit more control, so I'm going to give me a four of them. The 4 of the FFDs, the little lattices, instead of 3. We're gonna see. We're gonna see how this feels, and if it's too much, then I might go back. But now what I can do is I can just bend and shape what I want and how I want it. So these guys are all pinched, and this is like around, and definitely over here. These need to be like, oops, pinched up a little bit. I can take this top one and the bottom one, and I can pull them out, so that, you know, I get cloth, which it looks like I might want to do this guy and this guy as well. Got a little bit more of an even pull. And it's okay if like the models are, you know, crisscrossing, because again, I'm gonna be altering more of this stuff later. But do we have that bottom part? Yes, we do. Look at that. That's pretty dang close. So let me move that back in a little bit. Dang, we're almost out of time. This is my least favorite part about streaming, is like I'll get in a groove and then, well, it's over. See ya. But yeah, so okay, cool. So we've got some really interesting shapes coming on over there. So now let's, you know, go over here, figure out what we want to do here. Which all of this is so extra. Which I did on purpose so that we would have enough room to kind of bend it down and get it on what we want. So I'm following right there on that blade. So I'm gonna want this guy to be up along the blade. Just keep pulling that up a little bit. Let's see, where do we want? The one that I'm currently doing, I want up. So we're gonna want to take these, pull them out and up. This. Let's go top. So whenever I switch to that view, so this is perspective view, so, you know, hooray, awesome, whatever. If I use my grid, you see that, right? If I go to the top, this is the top view, and there's no angles on it, so that I can move stuff without, you know, screwing anything else up, like accidentally clicking something over here, because I know that there is, when I do this, I'm only going straight down. There's no angle that can throw me off in any way, which is really nice when I'm having to, you know, when I need to move very specific things, which I actually need to grab. Looks like I need to grab these guys and move both of them up. Oops. So it's just really fun and interesting. Yeah, some of this stuff is gonna get a little hairy. So we're gonna have to go in and then you go in, which if I just hide everything, now in perspective. So hide everything. So now I can go in and kind of like, which this looks kind of like a mess, which is fine. But go in, maybe take those guys again and bring this back out a little bit. Bring this back up. And then probably perspective. I want these 4 and these 4. I do believe to come with me out. Yep. So now you can see how I'm getting these kind of really organic shapes by just kind of moving these FFDs around, which is really fun because then you get these really awesome base shapes to build off of, and then you get to sculpt on them, and then you get to bring them back in, and they look really awesome and dope, and it gives you just a lot more easier geometry to work with when you're trying to do other things. What's our concepts look like over here? Actually not bad. I could probably... That's pinching really hard. I just want to see what moving this does. A lot of this stuff too is like kind of trial and error, figuring out like, okay, what's moving what. And obviously you can see they get a little messy, so. See what these do. Okay, these guys are the ones I want, I think. Yeah, actually, you know what? We'll bring those guys back down. Okay. So, you know, it's okay, so it's cutting in here, so we want these 4. Which it looks like we might need to bring these 3 up. Yeah. Oh. Okay. Actually, I lied. I mean, we can still bring those up. Bring these down. This is gonna go under this, as our concept states. So we don't have to worry too much because I can drop this one down under that and make sure that we don't have an issue. But for, you know, we'll just make that kind of pop up just for funsies. So yeah, so there's probably, so actually what we're gonna do, okay, so we did one side, right? So we can collapse this down. Now I'm gonna go from the top, I guess, and we're gonna do some symmetry. And I actually want it on, where's my mirror? Okay, so I want my mirror to be, I think that's what I want. I don't really know. I see what's happening. So I need to flip it. There we go. Okay. So what I was doing was, okay, we worked on this top one, and the mirror was actually taking the bottom piece and flipping it up on top instead of taking the top piece and flipping it down below. So we just had to go ahead and we had to flip that over here on the axis. So now I am actually mirroring. If I wanted to move this, I am mirroring it down below. So I don't have to do the exact same movements I did before. Now it's mirrored, which symmetry is so freaking awesome. You bet it. You bet I am. So now I can convert this thing to, you know, editable poly, and there. Now we have one piece, one cloth piece done. Now I can do the exact same thing I was doing over here. Turbo smooth to 2. Let's see if we can get this done before the stream ends. Smoothing groups, so I'll get the edges. What I could potentially do is mimic this one, literally just copy and like rotate it and then do some stuff, but it's more fun to just more practice and stuff to do these guys. So this one is a little bit wider. Also, it looks like that I might have made this way too big, like widthwise or whatever. But for the most part, you know, we can change that stuff later. Mr. Wide is what this one is. Looks like it's coming up too high, but that's fine. We can change that later. So again, I'm just gonna do this guy, and then I'm just gonna do exactly the same thing I was doing. Is going through and probably start from the top. Figuring out just control points, lattices, what I want to move, how I want to move it to. Jokes. So it's gonna. This probably is gonna be wrapped around like that. These two I probably want to pull out a bit. I can lift that up. Out and up, yeah. So too high. I see. So these guys are actually supposed to be fucking under this. Here. This is where this is supposed to be nestling, whatever the hell. However the dang heck. Okay, so now I can grab these. Oops. I don't know if you saw that, but I grabbed too much there. Now I just want to move these guys out a little bit so that they're not being clipped through on at their sharp corner. And then, you know, I won't really have to worry because I can do the exact same thing on the bottom when I get to that point. Let's see, what are we looking at? So that just comes directly up. Again, that one's real tight on the corner. These four, I want to move. So this cloth is actually technically, we're gonna play with this for a sec. According to the concept, which we go, part of this is being a 3D artist, is changing the concept to what better fits, you know. I really like asymmetry, so I actually might keep one that goes over the blade, and then I'll keep one that drops down. I think that gives us some really fun, interesting shapes to play with. But so now, again, with the asymmetry, we can just kind of like, you know, flatten these out, bring them up. I want these guys to be in. One cloth, you know, wraps around that kind of stuff. Now, these top guys, we're just gonna grab and pull up. Same with these, actually. And then with these, I want to pull out. So now you can see that I'm kind of like, it's just warping this stuff to kind of, you know, do what I want and look and feel. So, and then getting these to drop down, these to drop down. Ha ha ha! There it is. There she blows. What we're trying to get around. Is right there. So we can drop, I actually think, yeah. So I think we'll let the forge decide when we get there. I don't think it has quite, I mean the blade's not even made yet, so I feel like we just haven't given it, you know, enough time to mature. Really truly figure out what it wants to be. I think once the sculpting is done, we'll call it that's the forge. So once the sculpting is done, Degas. This could be Degas. I'm down. Actually, though, I'd have to put a rune on it. But I actually would not be opposed to calling this one Degas. That would be fun. That'll be a bitch, but we'll figure that out later. Yeah, dude. Emissive maps are my jam. I love making things glow. It's just so satisfying. Okay, so now what I remembered talking about was grabbing this duder, pulling that in so that it doesn't show up under that. And as long as that doesn't screw with anything, which we could actually, I just want these two, pull that up. It just depends. No, literally, no, like if a player is holding this weapon, there's no way in hell they're gonna see this. But for my personal, you know, I like doing that sometimes. Okay, so this one was pretty quick. I've got 4 minutes, so we're going to. That's really tight, and I don't really like that. So let's take these two. I think we're going to pull up more. Sorry, I had to remember how to bring. Okay, that works too. So we'll keep it like this for now. I think that actually works pretty well. We're gonna go ahead and convert that to editable poly. I think I left the, nope. Did I leave any of the things on? I did, I left it on this guy. Left it on this guy. Cool, okay, so those guys are good to go. This guy, now he needs the symmetry. Symmetry, gotta check my mirror. I want it across the z-axis, no, the y-axis. And I want to flip that. So now it's going to do, looks kind of odd, but we can play with that later. Yeah, so let's actually change that, well, where am I at? I got 3 minutes. Nope, it's got to stay right there. Actually, mischief. Okay. So again, convert to editable poly. If I shift P that, get that right in the middle there. I'm gonna lift this up just a bit. Now we have a little bit of extra room on both sides. Dude, yes. Okay, cool. So now we've got, if I take F4 off, some cloth to play with. You know, we've got a pretty sexy looking hilt starting here. All wrapped up and whatnot. Like I said, this stuff is gonna change. But it's coming along nicely actually. So then next week we'll get to the blade, and probably we should be able to finish up maybe the low poly mesh. We can take this bad boy into ZBrush, which is my favorite part, because that's when all the fun little details come out. And kind of go through and yeah, see what's going on. I also realized, oh wow, I've been talking, okay, well, the live chat on YouTube's also open, so I've been talking to them too, which is pretty funny. Yeah. Thank you guys for tuning in. I think that'll conclude the stream today. I am going to save this, because guess what? I haven't saved it yet. Saved, done, good, cool, awesome. And then, yeah, I think we're good. Thank you so much again for joining me. I'm excited to kind of seeing the process kind of move and evolve on this guy. And I'm just excited to have you guys all here with me watching and encourage me along. So that's it. 7 o'clock. We've hit our mark. So thank you guys again, and tune in next week. Bye.